2 weeks ago, I asked you a question. Which champions could be considered as the top 5 champions that Purify debuffs or shrug them off? We've got tons of comments and different types of champions, which I've put together in a special top 5 tally list to give us our top 5 that the community have voted for. Look out for future top 5 or community-based videos, which I do quite regularly. I haven't done in the last couple of weeks because, well, I've been very busy, but they will come thick and fast in May and in the future, so we can create videos like this. So let's have a look at some of the contenders for the top 5 best debuff Shruggers and Purifiers. Now, this doesn't mean to say that the champions that did not make the top 5 aren't worthy of that placement of being, you know, some of the best debuff Shruggers in game. A full example can be found in the link in the description. It'll take you to the spreadsheet that I created for this. But there's so many options of champions that didn't make the list or didn't make the cut of the top 5, which still are completely relevant and do an amazing job to help out players. Like, my particular favourite is King Groot and Crossbones, which it's kind of sad not seeing them make the top 5. But look, you know, each to their own with this, and there will be more kind of popularized versions of champions or popularized champions that players find more, I'd say, fluid, better for certain circumstances, or just that they do a lot more damage and do exactly the same. I still love you, King Groot. With your spending of fury buffs to purify debuffs, and Crossbones, my little skill option. With a high signature, you get a 90% chance to purify incoming debuffs. Man, you're a beaut, but you didn't make the top 5. From the list were a lot of surprising options that players went for. I definitely like the idea of Angela with a high signature being a very good option. Especially Elsa Bloodstone popped up a few times, and Blade, you know, if you have like a full 3 bars of power, you're able to literally just shrug things off. Even, it's nice seeing Rogue and Captain America, Infinity War with skill champions. There were kind of like a lot of really cool options that were put out there. And as I said, the link to this particular tally sheet, whatever it is in the description down below, and gives you a real idea of some really decent debuff shrugging champions that can be very helpful for players, especially with dealing in certain situations, covering a broad spectrum of classes. But of course, we must get right to the point, and that is the top 5, baby. What is the top 5 for this? The top 5 looks like this. We've got Kingpin at the top, Mole Man, Shang Chi, Agent Venom, and Killmonger with Void. Now, we've got to go over some very weird things that do be happening with this. Now, number 5, and this isn't the weird one's the next one, the number 4. So number 5 is Killmonger. Killmonger with Void has always been that kind of like OG go-to option to take on certain content. With having Void in your team or in the synergy means that if the Vibranium Armor is active, Killmonger has 35% chance to purify a debuff after a 0.5 second delay, and then instantly regenerates 4% health per debuff. So it allows you to deal with situations that debuffs would be thrown at you. That's great. That's absolutely fine. That's a fantastic option. I give thumbs up to that one, and that's definitely, you know, a logical top 5 for a lot of players, and has been used since both champions were introduced into the game, and as well you could like synergize them together. The weird one in this is the top 4, or the 4th one, and that is Agent Venom. I think this is just the way that people kind of voted with the community page, or kind of like every time they mentioned it, a lot of the time this did come with a follow-up line, which was, this champion does need a buff though. The reason I think this is kind of factored into it is because of the way the tenacity works with this champion, and that we have got, coupled with his alien symbiotic enhancements and the flash intense military whatever, grants him a 70% chance to purify any debuff. That's really helpful. It's not as consistent as, say, 100% chance to shrug off a debuff, or super effective as way the last 3 will be in the top 5, but I think that may be the case that because people will mention it, but also, you know, they like the idea of the champion, they just don't see that the champion's worth is, like, as I said, it followed up with a lot of the time with, this champion needs a buff. But that may be a case of like increasing damage numbers and other types of elements right there. So that's why this is like an iffy 4 In at number 3, and what got 9 of the votes of the various types of ones mentioned, and we do get into some bigger numbers when it comes to the top 2. So Shang Chi, or Shang-Chi, I should say that correctly before people go, no, Rich, actually, I found you saying this is the correct way. So yeah, Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi has Cleanse. Cleanse is part of his kit, which does allow so much more to his utility. He's got some great damage numbers, and I've recently picked this up. I'm not ranking up a huge amount of champions at the moment, just after I do the big opening of End of Act 7. Boom, big opening, we see what champions I've got, and I'll start ranking up champions from there. But it's still a great champion, and here we go. We've got Cleansing Strike, which is Purify 3 debuffs, gain 1 indefinite cleanse passive for each readied Wushu strike, lasting until the Wushu strike is readied. When champion with cleanse is inflicted with a debuff, it immediately purifies and cleanse is removed. That's pointing it out. But you do that through the medium of medium like medium in order to achieve that particular purification type element. And it's a very easy thing to do. Easier rotations to do as well, and there's much more to this champion that meets the eye than just that specific thing, but we're talking about how debuff shrugging works and some of the best options to cleanse, purify, and remove those nasty debuffs. In at number 2 with 22 votes is Mole Man. Mole Man is an incredible champion. I'm just about starting to work with him. I tried to be a bit kind of like, I held off a little bit in kind of ranking him up because I had him a long time ago, and it's just a lot of champions that I was getting felt like I was putting them above him in order to kind of like get rank ups, and that's going to change, especially when we come to the end of Act 7 and I get all that kind of like massive rewards opening. I just want to see what happens where it takes my roster, but definitely he's in my future plans of usage of a champion to take further and do more with. But he's an absolute machine in damage, and that's obviously, there's so many reasons as to why he's a great champion, whether or not he's got that true accuracy, shock immunity, the way he interacts with debuffs. He can be used for a lot of different circumstances. And what's great about this is that you're able to shrug off debuffs. 100% chance to gain a monster mass when inflicted with a debuff. There's a minus 70% chance when fighting mutant champions, blah, 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 blah. Debuffs are purified 1 second after 5 monster mass or above, the time is decreased by 0.5 seconds. So you definitely get that kind of like nice time where you're like, oh, debuff, oh, removed. It's like, great. Just adds into a very kind of like stacked champion, and very good like straightforward rotations with him. Love him. I think he's great, and that's why I've ranked 3'd him, but I haven't started using him as much. But that will change very, very soon. And now we end as we normally do with number 1. Who was the number 1 top champion that was voted as a Purify or debuff shrugging option? And it's Kingpin. Kingpin was, a lot of people mention Kingpin, so non-surprisingly, it is a great champion. It's definitely a champion I want to get 6-star, and I haven't developed him any kind of way, my own roster, because I have options that were similar to him, and I need to be ready to, I need to make decisions about ranking 6 stars over 5 stars, but it's definitely a champion I would like to kind of take up further in the future. A lot of people recommended that this champion be used with a Hood synergy. Although Joe Fixit nowadays can be used in any type of complementary fashion, it's just a case of like going, okay, well, you know, Hood is a great option, especially if you're looking for something that deals with kind of stagger, suppressing buffs, those kind of things. So you've got like 2 options that kind of deal with different types of sectors of fights. So a great team that can be set up around. Rage, Purify, ability, accuracy. That's one of the key reasons that becomes more of a key thing. But on the face of it, it's a great champion for interactions with getting debuffs on you. Kingpin can gain Rage, which is a debuff with no inherent effect. Kingpin gains a non-rage debuff with a 60% chance to purify it and gain 1 Rage. And there's also incoming debuffs. Each debuff on Kingpin only strengthens his resolve, increasing attack rating by 215.7 and combat rating by 5%. So that's kind of cool and kind of allows him to kind of like build damage potential. Overpower. When Kingpin has 8+ debuffs. Kingpin purifies 8 debuffs to grant 100% chance to gain an overpower buff lasting 15 seconds and providing 1797.5 attack rating, as well as unblockable special attacks. So that's pretty cool. There's so much more to this champion meets the eye, but you definitely get that kind of interaction with having debuffs on you versus purifying them versus damage potential versus attack rating increase, and it's just there as being like a freight train. I think that's the best way to describe it. A freight train of damage from having debuffs on you and the interactions forthwith with them. In any case, that has been the top 5 Debuff Shruggers and Debuff Purifiers in Marvel Contest of Champions. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll be doing much more of those kind of like top 5s very, very soon. Congrats to Kingpin and all the other people that made the top 5. As I said, this is just based on, you know, the data tally system from players and interactions in that community tab. So it's up to you whether or not you want to take it seriously or not. Yeah, it is what it is. Thanks for watching this. Hope you enjoyed it, and make sure to check out some other content located on screen right now. More top 5 videos to come in the future, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye bye.